The flickering glow of the television was all that filled the dim room, casting shifting shadows across the cluttered walls. Emma had always loved her vintage collection of movies and shows, especially the late-night marathons she watched alone in her small apartment. Tonight, something felt different, more unsettling. As she reached for the remote to switch to her favorite horror film, her hand hesitated. The screen suddenly flashed with static, then went black. A faint hum vibrated through the room. Emma blinked, thinking maybe her eyes were playing tricks on her. When she looked again, the screen flickered back on, but this time, not with a film, but with a strange, distorted version of her favorite cartoon characters. The characters weren't just animation anymore. They stared directly at her, their exaggerated eyes gleaming with an eerie glow. The mischievous grin of the talking cat from her childhood show curved into a sinister smirk. The hero from her superhero series stepped out of the screen, his costume torn and bloodstained, a crooked smile on his face. Emma's heart hammered in her chest, rooted to the spot as a chilling realization dawned. They're alive. Suddenly, the room grew icy cold. The air thickened as the characters seemed to step out of the screen, their movements unnatural but deliberate. The hero took a slow, menacing stride toward her. His once heroic face now twisted into a mask of rage. "Where is she?" His voice was distorted, echoing as if coming from a deep void. Emma stumbled backward, knocking over a chair. Her mind was racing. How could this be? She had always known fiction to be just that, fiction. But now, she was staring into the eyes of creatures that were supposed to be just images, yet they moved with hostility and intent. The cartoon cat's glowing eyes darted around the room before fixing on Emma. "You shouldn't have watched this," it hissed, voice high-pitched yet menacing. "You brought us to life." Before she could react, she felt a cold grasp around her ankle. She looked down to see the cartoon cat's paw, claws sharp as knives, clinging to her, tugging at her with unnatural strength. Emma screamed as she fell to the floor. The room spun around her as the characters closed in, their faces contorted with fury. Panic took over. Emma scrambled to her feet and bolted for the door, only to find it vanished into a darkness beyond her reach. The television's glow pulsed ominously, the characters now fully emerging into her world. "Stop her," the hero commanded, voice like a deafening roar. His face twisted into a monstrous snarl. Emma's mind raced. She remembered the old tales, how some stories could trap the unwary within their worlds. She grabbed a nearby object, a heavy, vintage lamp, and swung it wildly. The cartoon cat yowled, releasing her momentarily, and she darted to the window. Flinging the window open, she leapt into the alley below. The pavement was cold and unforgiving. Her breath came ragged as she looked back, but the alley beyond was empty. Had she managed to escape? Looking around, she saw flickers of the television glow in the windows of neighboring apartments, but her own could be dark now. Still trembling, she hurried down the street, every shadow seeming to hide lurking eyes. But as she passed a run-down shop, she glimpsed her reflection in the broken glass. For a moment, she thought she saw the cartoon hero's face behind her, snarling softly. She spun around, nothing. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. Hours later, Emma found refuge in a diner, trembling as she recounted what had happened. The other patrons watched her skeptically, until she glanced at her phone and saw a strange, flickering image on the screen. It was her, only it wasn't her. Her face was contorted, eyes hollow, brandishing a sinister grin. Emma's blood ran cold. She realized, with dread, that the characters had not just become real, they had invaded her reality, and they weren't done yet. The next day, she returned home, only to find her apartment door slightly ajar. Inside, everything was in chaos, the furniture knocked over, her belongings torn apart. In the center of the room, the television sat silent, cracked, but still flickering with a vague, unsettling glow. She approached cautiously, heart pounding. As she reached to unplug it, a voice whispered from the static, "You brought us to life. Now, we're going to live forever, inside you." Emma's scream echoed in the empty apartment as shadowy figures seeped out of the screen, filling every corner, every crack. Their hostile eyes met hers, promising that the nightmare had only just begun. From that day on, Emma knew she could never trust what she saw on the screen again. The characters had become her reality, hostile, relentless, and hungry for her very soul. And somewhere in the darkness of the television, a familiar crooked grin watched her, waiting patiently for her to forget, so it could strike again.